I am really excited today to have a great panel of ladies who have been open and honest enough to talk about health and fitness. What does it mean for them? What does it mean for their families? And more importantly, the specific topic of what does this mean for their significant others, their husbands, and what messages does that send both to them, to their family? Why is it important? And I just really wanted to be able to have a good roundtable conversation to really understand a little bit more of the in-depth. And so we're going to do our best to have an open and candid conversation today. And hopefully you stick with us for this entire video because we're going to get into some pretty cool stuff. If you're a man out there and you have been desperate to know what really goes on into the minds of women, this is the episode for you. And hopefully this isn't so much about feeling guilt or shame. This is about motivation, because if you are one of those guys that is trying to change, wants to change, but maybe you just don't know how, or maybe that change isn't there because you haven't had enough either pain yet or enough desire to change, I am hoping today, after listening to these women, that your desire goes up 100-fold when you hear these women talk about their stories, when you're here to hear their successes, as well as their deep down desires and wants. And if you're a man who loves giving to your woman, this is for you, because this should be a ton of motivation so that you can give yourself, your family, your kids, and your wife more of yourself, your God-given self, and for your purpose. So with that, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. I am overjoyed in just your willingness to be open and candid. And like I say, I was hoping to have a nice, comfortable couch, whatever, and stuff. And, you know, after our workout, we've actually also done a full workout today and got some of that in to get the blood flowing. Besides that, yeah, we're going to get started. And just to be very, really to start it off, what I would love to do is, Daniel, if you wouldn't mind talking about your Josh, who has gone through an amazing transformation in a lot of ways, and fitness has really hit your family at different stages, and your and his story is really remarkable, and it's a great way to kick off what we're about today. So if you wouldn't mind, could you just give us a quick overview of your story with Josh?
Yeah, so Josh and I, we've been together 13 years, and we have 3 beautiful children, and last year we had a complete turn in our health, which kind of led us down to the path of where we are today. But I'll go back a little bit. When Josh and I met, we were kind of, in our 20s, not really thinking too much about health. We were young, and it was kind of, what are we doing career-wise, right? And we both gained a lot of weight, lost a lot of weight, did all the right things, checked all the boxes. And last year, my husband had suffered a herniated disc, a pretty bad one. As Chris knows, Chris was wonderful in helping us and is currently helping us rehabilitate that. And we began taking priority in our health this past year, and it goes a lot deeper than just the appearance and what I'm learning. And I'm kind of on the journey with everybody else, just knowing that it is the most important thing, because without that, I mean, there's a lot of things that fall to the wayside. And so I'm just here as someone to contribute and kind of share my story, my perspectives, and even, share some things that might be conceived as, a little bit risky to talk about, but I think it's important for all men to hear, and for us to be vulnerable, and to us to be able to share things that maybe they don't want to hear, but probably really, really important for them in their marriages.
Absolutely. And just to be a little bit more clear, Josh has now become a great friend of mine, is actually partnering with me, and I'm super excited because this is for all you corporate guys out there. We're not talking little time here. Josh has created over 37, 8, and 9-figure businesses and is tremendous, actually. So Danielle's been very humble in terms of where they started versus where they're at today. And even Josh's physical transformation at one point was 380 pounds.
Yeah, he was a big boy.
Yeah, and he didn't start that way. So we're talking about weight gain, and then also to lose all the weight even before. So just for most people, having that type of just weight transformation is already huge, let alone being able to do that while being a full-time, high-level executive, like business, shark. I would call him a shark. He's amazing. But at the same time, and from everything, having, and when I put him, he was one of the few people that I actually did send into surgery with one of my neurosurgeons And after coming out of that, he had one of the top 5 worst low back herniations in multiple spots than that my doc has ever seen. So we're not talking about small potatoes here. No. So this is where health went just from like, do you want to be able to get on the floor and play with your kids, and longevity, and hey, I don't want to die at 50 years old. But also now when Josh was laid up, he couldn't move, he couldn't do whatever, and now it really hit. And also, again, Josh isn't here to talk for himself, so I will a little bit, his
Please.
Fear of, I don't ever want to put my family through this. And so he's really been through that, and he's pretty much one of my model people of why I am doing this Chris Knott reprogram, to help a lot of corporate guys who have built an empire but have let their health go and might not know how to get back on. But not just for your health. Like, yes, don't have a heart attack at 50. Be there for your grandkids. Be able to get on the floor and wrestle with your kids. Have fun. Go wake surfing. Do these things. Go on vacations. Because you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have your health, you have nothing. But when you literally can't even move and you're thinking, I can't even support my family now, then it's a whole different thing. So if you just want to add a few more seconds to that.
Yeah, and I'll throw out there too, so on that journey to 380 pounds, Josh also suffered a heart attack. He was 29, and at that time, we're entrepreneurs, and at that time I had been out of the Air Force a couple of years, and he called me and he said to me, hey, I'm having clamminess, and come to find out he was in a full-blown heart attack. Excuse me, it was 31. 31, he had a heart attack. Way too young. And so, but at this point, right, he's 375 pounds, something along those lines, running his multi-million-dollar moving company, contracts with USAFA and Peters, all these military bases, and he was high-level stressed. He was, emotionally eating his way through the corporate ladder, and there was a lot of things there that now I can look at and go, the signs were progressively increasing. But he had also had a heart attack, and I think just to piggyback off what Chris said, you kind of get into a blind space as a wife at times, and you are like, wow, things really are going great. We are, progressing. Our kids are able to go to here. We're doing well in these areas, and so you don't really think about it until these things hit you. And I hope for anyone sitting at this table, you never have to experience the depths of what I did, because it came on young and it came on fast and unexpected. And so, I guess I'll piggyback on that. I don't know if there's anything you kind of want me to add, but Josh is, and I hope one day you guys, your husbands and our husbands, all get to meet, and you'll see that my husband's just an everyday guy too. Yes, he does very big things in business. He takes on very big projects, and he lives his life full throttle. And which is why, when things go good, they go very, very great. And as I know all of your husbands are the same, right? I'd imagine. And when we're talking about the basis of health for him, it wasn't something that we talked about at the dinner table, because it was kind of taboo. And you don't want to hurt your spouse's feelings of saying, hey, you're getting a little thick around the waist, but those things actually do matter, because I know we've paid the ultimate price over the last year, and it's just not something I'm ever, as a wife, ever willing to negotiate with again. And it was because I was nice, and it was because I was permissible, and it was because I kind of bit my tongue with things, that I take responsibility for things getting to that level, because, the money was coming and he was providing on these aspects of things, and yet I believe that I wasn't supportive in having the hard talks. So yes. I'll leave it with that too.
That's awesome, because this is exactly kind of what we're looking at. If you're a guy out there and you're thinking, well, I make a ton of money, do this, like, it's not an excuse. And guys, we have to be held to a higher standard. And I wanted these women to be able to have a platform to really speak from the heart, because like you're hearing, all these women, I've gotten to know them, they're supportive, they love their husbands, and they want to be kind. They don't want to be demanding, and yet they still have needs. They still have desires. We all do, guys. We have desires, and so if it's okay for us to have desires, guess what? It's okay for them to have desires too. And to start though with Josh's story, it just shows that we'll talk about this, and we'll get in the nitty gritty. But this isn't just about better sex. This is also about again, these bigger pictures, like you just heard, no more non-negotiable type of stuff. Yeah. And guys, you need to hear this stuff. So Before, I'm going to digress really quick. So I like to hear from all four ladies, like at the beginning, like what has been your primary motivations for your health, your fitness, and why does physique matter to you? If you could just summarize that individually, that'd be great. Renee, I'll start with you.
It's for sure longevity. I have 4 very active kids, and that I want to be able to play basketball when I'm 75 or soccer, and I definitely want to play tennis until I'm 100. Like, I want to be that person that wants a big tennis tournament when I'm old. So it's longevity, and I know that if I'm not doing it the right way, that lifting and exercising isn't going to give you longevity. Like, we talk about proper form, proper eating, like recovering, like all of those things go with having longevity. So for sure, longevity. Plus, I want to look at too. I'd love to be that 100-year-old woman that looks like she's 60. So and that's important to me too. And I think that setting the example for my kids too, and let them know that fitness is important. Like, I'm a little bit of a food sharer at home. So, but I have boys that can eat until they can throw up. And so I pitching myself a little bit like, I can't eat that. I can't eat that. I see that they can eat whatever they want. So I have to be careful that aspect of like humor. And I think I project it onto my husband a little bit because he tries to eat like the boys and he really probably shouldn't. And for me, I'm like, how about you be my teammate with this? Because I'm trying to do I only be helpful if I had another person in the home that supports me and that journey's here.
Okay, so I'll stop. I mean, I told you this, but I might just stop us right here because this is our canon thing. I think I know enough about women to know the importance of companionship and the word you said, you want a teammate. Yeah. Can any woman here not say that if you rank the top 5 things in terms of a relationship, like is having a true partner, a teammate, it's got to be top 1 or 2, right? Okay.
It's a big deal, yeah.
It's a big deal, right? Okay. So, and I've made all the mistakes of I'm working, I'm doing this, and you get into this almost management role as opposed to, and so it's like a business transaction. It's no longer a team, okay? And part of my thinking as you were listing the top things, yes, longevity, yes, example to your kids, yes, wanting to win a tennis tournament in later years, all this kind of stuff. If you were honest, like, is there any standard and all these good standards? It's one thing to say it doesn't have to look exactly the same, but we're just labeling really some kind of 32,000 foot big ticket items here. Out of those big ticket items though, could you really say that you wouldn't have a desire and expectation for your spouse to hold those same standards?
We have to come along the heat for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I just want to get up top. So guys, understand if your woman's saying that it's important to her, then she wants it to be important to you too.
I just think that if I'm on a certain program, if I'm working out and eating well, I just feel better. I definitely want to look better in clothes and feel good. If I go on a vacation, I can throw on a swimsuit and not have to worry about, oh my gosh, why didn't I lose 15 pounds before I went on this vacation, right? You just always want to be kind of prepared. And then I have 2 teen boys as well, and they're very tall and lean, so they're always trying to put on, weight. So
it's so cruel.
Yeah. But then my husband will say, well, you need to eat like your mom, because with every meal I'm having at least 30, grams of protein. I'm kind of wanting my husband to also get on that same, like, let's not make lasagna and, I don't eat that, but, they will, and they have 2 or 3 servings.
So I just want to ask Sheree a question, if that's okay. So do you find yourself making food for yourself and your family?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Oh, but it's just you, not...
Yeah, I'll take out my pre-made meals out of the freezer, and then they'll have the chicken enchiladas with the rice and the nachos. And
so you're kind of liking all of that on your own when it comes to that piece.
Well, and that will only happen maybe once a week, because other than that, we'll have steak and potatoes or chicken and yeah. So trying to incorporate more healthy food for everybody, so we can have that longevity and have, I'd like my husband to be around longer. I mean, he has high blood pressure and high cholesterol.
And so Keish, should we eat with heels while I'm hiking? Oh. I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm just like...
Well, and I think he tries, at the same time with him being an airline pilot, when he's gone, it's like, what do I eat? Sometimes he gets in at 1 a.m. He has the apple that they serve on the desk of the, of the hotel, and then in the morning he has to be at the airport at 4 a.m. So on the way out, grabs the banana. I mean,
It's hard.
Right. Well, and this is where I kind of come in a little bit to help these guys when they think like they have this want, but they don't have the steps together. Just like when I came to Josh, I wanted to do more coaching. I want to do more online stuff. I know how to do the task of training. I've been doing that for 30 years, and I can do it at the highest level. I knew nothing about marketing, knew nothing about online sales, nothing about that. So I needed his plan, his expertise to come in for that. In the same way, guys and women, you honestly make better clients. Why? Because you actually don't think you know it all. Guys like to think they know it all, and they're too proud and too arrogant to ask for help a lot of times. And they just kind of then push it off, or they come up with some excuse because they're like, oh crap, I can't do it. And so bottom line is, guys, if you want to do this and you need to know, how do you do this when you're on the road? How do you train right and get the right stimulus when you're at the crappy hotel gym? How do you pre-plan food, whatever? But I'm going to also help on the home front too, because again, a team that is divided cannot stand, but the team that comes together can do it so much better, and you get to thrive relationally, not just physically. And honestly, and this, I'll give you some ladies some tips today, and then that way when you say, hey, this wasn't my idea, you can blame me. I'm okay. You can blame me. Well, one of my things is because I do hear women complain about this. I got to do this, and then I'm like this, and it's a waste of time. I'm like, if you're the one cooking, guess what? I don't remember you signing up an LLC restaurant, so it's not a restaurant. So if you say I'm eating this, then guess what? Everyone else can eat that. And if they want something else, then they can cook it for themselves. Mm-hmm. And my guess is do the husbands do the food shopping?
No.
Oh, no, they don't? So now you're doing it. So guess what? If you don't want to buy extra chips, why do you have to buy extra chips? Because that's one of my things. I could easily, it's been hard for me because now my youngest daughter, she's been volunteering at church, and my drop-off now happens to be at the time that they're now putting out Shipley's donuts. So I've been eating my Shipley's donuts because I love donuts. And I'm like, and it's funny, I'm the health guy, and it is my kryptonite. I can kill a whole box of donuts if it's in front of me. So what's my rule? My rule is not to have willpower and discipline to not go eat the donuts. My rule is I just don't go in the donut shop. Because if I buy them, I will eat them. So same thing, if you buy the chips, they will get eaten. Yes. So there's a couple of things too, and you need to be empowered. And sometimes it takes someone outside of you to say, it's okay to not buy the chips. It's okay to do this. It's okay to have that. And it could be an indirect way, as Danielle was saying, she wants to be able to be honest about, hey, I need to say this because that is the most caring thing. Mm-hmm. If you're being truthful and say, I want to care for my family, I want to care for my kids, like I would, if one of your kids, if you had a teenager and he goes, I feel like trying heroin today, you're not going to go out and buy heroin for him, because he thinks that would make him happy. So at the end of the day, what's the difference if we're being honest? Because we make excuses for it. So I'm like, if you've been entitled, just like I would flip it for those of you that have executive husbands, if they have an employee, and they say you need to do a good job, and that employee has an idea to do a better, more efficient, there is no, as a business owner myself, as people who has run employees, if an employee took the initiative to make their job better, great. They're going to get rewarded for that, not whatever. So if you're able to make your family healthier and better, you know what? And if they don't like I've always had a rule. It's like if I put food in front of one of my kids, if they don't want to eat it, I don't force them to eat it. But guess what? They don't get anything else. And it sits there cold and that's my rule. And so when you compromise those things, then it's always if you take an inch, you get
But see, you do that because you're not the mom.
It's different. I heard you, but you also don't have kids that can't keep weight.
Right.
Like, okay, so Rick, I mean, so
Cook in a
And
way
you want them
that-
to be happy. Like my kids will say, Mom, we don't have any snacks.
Or do they say I don't have any food?
Yes.
Like my boys
There's
will-
nothing
let me-
to eat when there's like everything to eat. It's full.
I hate my vegetables. Okay, I could easily live in a happy state off of just my meat and potatoes, but for health, I know I need my vegetables. I can tell you there's never a time that if someone actually has a fruit and vegetable tray out, that everyone ends up coming and grazing on them. So I guess part of it is we have to reframe our narrative, because I hear what you're saying and I understand it. And guys get this, and guys don't understand this. When you're gone all the time, you get to be the fun dad. Moms get all the crap. I understand this. It took me way too late to learn this lesson, but I understand it, which is now I'm much more supportive, and I'm like, hey, girls, if you're, that's another part of being a team player that I had to learn, too late the hard way. However, there's the things of saying, yes, they do need to gain weight. Yes, I mean, Renee just brought her son actually, because we did a whole diet mix-up change. And there's ways that I even need to talk to them, which part of it is we also understand, as all of us have kids, it takes a village to raise the kids. You can't do it all yourself. Part of that village is having the right people, because I can't tell you how many times I go to like high school teams and I'll do some nutritional teaching and I get 1,000 moms afterwards. Thank you. I've been saying the same damn thing. And they don't listen, but they'll listen to me. They won't listen to you. So I understand that. However, I do know that if they're hungry, if you put out something, if you put out apples, the apples will be gone. If you put out, some, healthy beef jerky, the beef jerky will be gone. I know. So there's plenty of healthy snacks to get them the right calories, to get them that they will enjoy and get full. But sometimes you just get so in the rut and it's so hard. And it's the hard part is change. And we'll talk a lot about this in this is change. I'm a big, out of all my schooling, the only thing I really thought was super important was the psychology training that I did in sports psychology, all that. But I actually looked and researched a lot of the before the fall of the Soviet Union, like their former Soviet methods. And one of the things that they looked at most when they were looking at their young athletes in the growing up is they looked at their ability for change, which meant things like, are they, from discipline to their tolerance for pain, because all change requires a level of pain. And if you could see that they didn't have any perseverance, if they couldn't tolerate pain, they were not going to be a good candidate for change. And every athlete to break through barriers requires a new level of pain, it requires a new level of change. So all this comes into any element of our life. Same thing in business. If you want to grow a business, you got to go through fearful times. You got to go through struggles. I mean, we're doing this. I mean, Josh helped me launch, and it's just like, oh crap. I thought we'd already be.
Getting the money.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Trust me.
But it is pain, and you have to go from enough pain to want to go through it, and enough belief to hold on to it, enough perseverance to see it through. Because you would say a lot of people it's like. Another side story, I used to give birthing classes because the way I train is a lot of the ways when you train an athlete, if you treat the birthing process as just an athletic event, it's way better than our American medicine that treats it like some kind of emergency, right? Okay, so in the same ways that we can coach that, you all know, and one of the things that I coach, and I actually coach the men more so than I coach the women, especially for first time, and you all had multiple kids, yes? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So the first one's always the craziest because you don't know what you're getting into. But after that, you kind of know, and after that you realize, but if you had a good coach, they would have told you that when you go through your emotional changes in the birthing process, there's a point in time where you're pushing, and then there's a time where, and you all have experienced this, at the very end, you kind of go to this, I can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And the moment I know, the woman goes, and there's that whole massive self-doubt, I can't do this anymore. I'm like, you're almost there. Now, the cool thing about birth is you just don't get to quit. It's coming regardless, right? So it forces you, and it's God's natural way of showing you that when you're at your very end, that's where the breakthrough happens, right? And so I coach this for the men because there's three words. I go, man, if you can remember just this, PIP, praise, encouragement, and progress.
Praise, encouragement, progress.
Or I guess that's PEP, right? Encouragement with an E. PEP, praise, encourage. Because if you think back to your birthing process, what did you need? The things you needed most, forget about the physical, rub my back, all that. Yes, that helped, and there's more to that. But you needed praise. Honey, good job. Keep going. You got this. You're awesome. And encouragement. And then you need to know progress, because when it's taking a long time, it's like, gosh, I'm 6 centimeters. Oh, now I'm 9. Okay, now you're there. Oh, and then part of the progress report for the men is when they're like at their hardest, the most hardest emotional time, of course, is I can't do this anymore. Hey, honey, remember when Chris told us this was the time? You are almost there. Yes, and you go, okay. And then there it is, right? Okay, so all change goes through this stage. And so this is a long way for me to saying that if you have a plan, because again, change will not occur if you, A, don't believe there's a path, and if you don't want it enough, which again, want and motivation comes back to either pain or enough pleasure, or the distance between that. If you really want this desire and you realize I'm here, and that distance also comes back to causing enough pain, you will persevere, but you will only continue to persevere if you know there's a plan. So if there's a plan for how do I do the snacks, how do I do the extra calories, how do I do all this, And then the discipline of saying this is for that, because what would be greater pain? You know, again, husband has a heart attack, husband gets laid up, husband does this. But unfortunately, some of us learned the lesson too late. So that's what we're here for today. And I'm hoping you guys out there hear this message, because don't wait until the pain is too great that you can't come back from it, so we can get started now.
I was adopted, so first off, I don't know any of my history of health for me. And so I've always been super into sports in high school and stuff. And then I just would work out, but I never saw like definition and what I wanted. When I see the girls that had that, you know, like they work out bobby, that's when I like, okay, I need to do something different. And so me and my husband, we've been married 20 years, glad. And yeah, but it's been rough. It's hard. There's been times where we have all split, and times where we both need to, like you were saying, get on the same page. And there's been times where we will focus on something and go after that. And that has been such a building together and fitness for us. And my husband, his goal, I think it was last year, he climbed all the 14ers here in Colorado. And so that was such a big thing, but that wasn't a together thing, you know? And so it was, we both had our things. I had the gym, he had his mountains. And since then, we both have kind of come together. We don't work out together, but we're there at the same time. And it's been more of a building thing for us, because we know for our kids, we have 4 kids, one's in Peru right now. And just to have them see like, hey, my mom and dad prioritize food and working out and us. So yeah.
That's perfect. So I can transition. So what, if you could summarize, like what kind of message does it send for you, your kids, and also to like others, because every one of you has husbands that has at least some realm of influence in other people's lives, whether it's corporately or whatever. So what message does your husband's fitness, both good and bad, send to you, your family, and his sphere of influence through your eyes?
Totally. Yeah. For a man, he's a chiropractor, doctor, functional medicine guy. So for him at work, like if he's looking weak and chubby, like if I have never had a personal trainer, but I would pick someone that looked the part. And I'm at the gym and I see these personal trainers. I'm like, how I would never pick that person to be what I want. So I feel like for us, what do we want? What is our kids going to be like? That's what I want mine older. I want to push my body. I want to push myself harder. And,
When I always thought, like, you know, some people are fortunate, they have parents that can give them money, you know, there's inheritance, there's all that. Your health is the only thing that no one can give you. You might have good genetics and you might get away with stuff in your 20s, maybe up to your 30s, but look at someone in their 40s, their 50s and 60s, then you find out who really has earned it, who has discipline, who has that. So if they don't have fitness, again, what kind of message does that send? Again, I think about these corporate guys, how many business deals are they losing? How many, when they walk into a room, do they command respect? I can tell you, like, you can have 2 guys. You can have someone that is probably even better than business than me. But if I walk into a room with confidence and I can speak, just from presence, it changes the room. Would you ladies agree to that?
100%. What I feel like when I see someone, you know, the discipline that they put in, because I know it for myself. I know I get up at 5 a.m. and then I hit the gym. So I know that they had the discipline that I would desire and want.
And are you, as a female, are you more, if a man were to speak on any topic, are you more readily willing to listen to that man based on his appearance?
I agree. 100%.
Yeah. And I don't know, but I mean, just knowing that your husband's a pilot, and I mean, I like, just from a passenger standpoint, right? Like, I would like to know that my pilot, you know, had a great night's sleep, or maybe, you know, that their habits are great, because the risk of them not being on their A game would probably be detrimental. And I know, like, from my perspective of, like, I don't know, that's just my, like, whenever I see a healthy stewardess or a healthy pilot on an airline, I just feel a little safer, because I know that they value their lives.
Well, I look at somebody that's fit and I just think they have discipline, right? And that's something that's very attractive. I am a stay-at-home mom, but I was a dental hygienist before then. So I would work in clinics or offices where there would be very fit dentists and other dentists that weren't so fit. There would be other dental hygienists that would be very overweight because what do they do all day? Sit. And so I think it definitely plays a part in just how people perceive you as being fit, healthy, you have discipline, you have, I think, just a better outlook on life, just a positivity with health.
Yeah, and science has shown us. I mean, when you have better hormones, you have better endorphins, you're just going to be a happier person. You're going to be better to be around. And again, it's not an end all be all, but again, we want to stack things in our favor. And here's the thing, perception is perception. I mean, men need to understand that, again, and women are great at this. You read nonverbal cues all the time. Men don't get this. Meaning that, oh, I said this. Well, no, but your body, your face, your all this said all this other stuff, right? And so perception's there, whether we want to be PC about it. And everyone right now is everything has to be politically correct. But again, we need to be honest because perceptions will always be there because it's part of our human design. And it's gotten even more fine-tuned over the years because we're so accustomed to having to read people and people lie all the time, whatever. So again, your body doesn't lie, and that's something we can do.
I want to
Yes,
caveat on
please.
something you said earlier about women and men being more like women. He's like, women are a better client because we're more, we're less apprehensive or
You're more compliant.
more compliant.
Yeah.
That was the word, excuse me. And I don't know about you ladies, but there's something that's just wildly sexy for me when my husband, because most of the time, right, our husbands are in command. They're adjusting, they're flying workcrafts, they're doing these big things. And for me, the reason I'm obsessed with my husband, and I'm no different than you, 3 times, 4 times a week, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I love my husband and I respect him and I love his masculinity and it's attractive. However, when there is somebody, right, like when I met Chris and when I met him, and I was like, yeah, that's the guy that needs to be training you, not the 250-pound guy who works at Lifetime Fitness and is making respectfully minimum wage. But when my husband went through his stuff, I wanted the best of the best. And I required the same from my husband. I want you to be the best of the best. But going back to that requires you to be masculine. That requires you to do the best at all times. And however, when there is somebody who is more proficient or more aware or more attuned in one realm from you, there is something wildly sexy about watching my husband take the back seat and learn to become better for us. And I love that. And I don't know if you guys can relate when your spouse is open to training or open to doing something.
Well, being humble enough to know that they still have something they can learn.
So let's unpack that. I mean, this is
Yeah.
very interesting. I think it's a great point, and I'm trying to think like, okay, what is underneath that really? Obviously, there's probably something attractive about humility. However, I'm like, okay, is that the number one thing? But I would have to believe that the desire to learn, which also says I can improve, I can get better, shows a greater capacity to say, because at the end of the day, when a man says, not just settles, he might get to it, and that's the hard part, is most men get to a level of success, and then they coast. And then it's demasculizing because now it's like, there's no such thing in life as you either get it better or you get worse. Everyone that thinks you can maintain something, I mean, those of you in business, if a business is not growing, it's dying. So when a man says, I'm willing to learn something for the sake of getting better at something to bring you a better version of myself, then all of a sudden it's like, I'm giving you more. And I would have to think that would be the same, if not as important, if not a greater message than, hey, honey, I can buy you a new car, or hey, because, okay, that brings you something that, hey, I couldn't buy you this before, now I can. And you're like, great, I love that, thank you. But if I can give you more of me, because at the end of the day, again, women are relational. And if you had to say, yes, there's the women, they're like, okay, they just want to give me the home, give me the vacation, give me the whatever. And that's not attractive. But if you can have it all, and that's the thing is, do we have men?
Yeah, I was going to say, can I get both?
Yes, and that's what I'm saying is, but if you can have both, and you can have, but if you did have to choose, if you had to choose between all the money in the world or having a great connection relationship. And to say that, to have the man that you desire, you want all of him. And that means if there's a better version of that man out there, then that really means right now, and this is the hard part. This shouldn't turn into a perfectionist kind of mentality, because we'll never achieve our truest God-given potential. Yeah. But I know that if I'm only at 60% of my potential, that means there's 40% I'm not given to my woman. So if I can even tap into another 10%, 20%, then now you have more of me. And this is what this thing is like, do I care about you and myself first? And that's where every human being, this is a human lesson first. We have to want for ourselves. This is where the self-care, the self-love comes in, because if you can't be happy with yourself, you're not going to give of yourself. But if you can say, I want this for myself and I want to give you more of me, what message of connection does that really bring?
I think it would make all the connection. I mean, just to have somebody that wants to move forward, even just that 10%, and then that would lead to 20. And then once you get that momentum, then it's even...
Yes, that's the word,
right?
Momentum. Life is momentum. And momentum in the opposite is equally as true. You know, you do less. If you feel worse because you're sick, now you're less active. You feel worse, you get more depressed, you do less work. Now you're not making as much. Now you feel more stressed. Now you're working out even less. Now you're unhealthy. Now you have a heart attack. Now, and it's, again, you have nothing, and there's a separation. So momentum is the same no matter what. There's always the principle of momentum. That's the right word, yeah. Do you ever start to feel like if your husband isn't caring for himself, you know, that we have this term now, trophy wife. If you're caring for yourself, if you're putting forth all this effort, and I would have to say, let's make that definition. All right, we have the word, but most people, when they hear the word trophy wife, they just think about it as beauty, right? I got this nice looking thing, this shiny thing. But are there other areas of your, we'll call it womanhood, your feminine role, that you could label as, I'm doing all this, I'm giving more of myself, I'm upholding and then therefore, does it create perhaps some of that feeling of trophy wife, even in the broader sense than just physique?
I think so, a little bit. Like, I think and I'm sure a lot of women think this way, even though it's not true, is I think I do it all, right? I take care of the house, I take care of the boys, I do the shopping, I do the cooking, I go to the gym, I try to, make myself look better. And then if my husband, all he does is just work, it's a little bit like, even at nighttime, if I'm folding laundry at 6 o'clock, he's like, why are you still working? I'm like, because my job is like 24/7. You're going to the gym, it's 8 at night. Well, yes, because I want to get my workout in. Whereas my husband, he'll go and work for 3-4 days, and then when he comes home,
That job time.
that's it.
Yep. And I can relate. And I've fallen into this because, and this is where it's so hard when, a man does have to work on. This is where, guys, I'll defend you a little bit too, because I know what it's like to bust your ass and work, and the stress. Also to know of like, if I don't get this done, because it's like, I could want everything tomorrow. I could say all night, I could write you love notes, but if the bills don't get paid and we end up on the streets and my kids don't get to eat and they're not sheltered, like just that stress alone is huge. And so, yes, men, we have it rough there, and it's this. And this is where there's no 50-50, that's 100-100 in relationships. But the reality is we're never doing that. And men, I will say, feel like, even if a man is not ever doing like, and especially because I have like all girls, and women talk. Men, it sucks. And men relate better through activity. So sometimes I'm like, man, what would it be like to have a son where it's like, hey son, we're going to go camping this weekend. And then where our cup is filled for an entire week. Whereas a woman needs 1,000 words all day long, and men just, I don't have that in me. And so that connection is always hard. And I feel like I'm now 100% on the work and the providing, and yet I feel like I'm not even capable of 100% on the parenting side, which I'm not. And even if I'm giving 20% parenting, now I feel like I'm doing 120%. Yeah. And so now it's where, and then you get in, and the hard part is I think it comes in the health relationship, when you have two people that honor and respect, and they're showing, and this is where like a man can be like, look, it doesn't take a lot. It takes that little bit of effort to show. And then I think what I find in most women is women are so resilient. If you give a woman a little bit, it goes so far. But when you give a woman nothing, then it's like World War III. And so, if there's the respect if there's that mutual coming together, even if it's like, I want more, but I can't do it all, I might not turn into, Hercules overnight, but just that, I think movement speaks volumes. And a lot of it is the messages and how we interpret those messages.
Well, and I think too, just like going into what you were saying, you took the words right out of my mouth. It was like, I do everything. We feel like we do, right? Because we do a lot of the heavy lifting too. It's not like a salaried position. And you can't quantify what a woman brings. Like, I see a lot of these things online now. Oh, what does a woman bring to the table? It's like, no, the woman like kind of is the table. Like a woman is the tone. Like Chris was saying earlier, a woman, we're very nonverbal. Like we can like read each other. Like we just talk, we look at each other, we see if we're being sincere. We can tell if one of us is nervous. We're very sensitive to those things. And I think what we're asking for from our men isn't to be perfect or to have the six-pack ab body. Like I know that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for my husband to be a chisel. If that's something that he wants, ends up doing in the journey to becoming the best version of himself, great. What I'm asking for, and I think what a lot of women in my realm are asking for, is to work harder. And I just don't mean work harder in your career. That has all different aspects. I mean, like you just said, you're a dental hygienist. That's a six-figure job. I come from corporate background too. There was 1,000 things that I could have did to bring financial stability to our family. And while I agree with what you say, Chris, is that there's a lot of stress to the financial side. Yeah, there's a lot of stress for women too, and it's not just finances. And my husband and I have this conversation all the time. Everything comes at a cost. Everything. Nothing is free. From the little chocolate hot cocoa balls at Christmas at a financial advisor's office, all the way to your spouse not taking their health seriously. There is a cost for everything. There is a cost for mom not going to the gym at 8 p.m. There is a cost for wanting to have another child. We're always exchanging and nothing comes free. And I think what women, me particularly as a wife, is asking for, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen those Christian shirts. My boys wear them. It says, no one cares, work harder. There's a layer to that is true. And while I care, we're moms, we care. That's why we make 2 meals. And I'm making a smoothie for my kid who's going vegetarian for the week, and the other one who's trying to gain 15 pounds, and me who's doing keto, and my husband who isn't eating tonight because he's just so stressed. Like, we do care. Of course we care. That's in our DNA. We're women. We care. And we do want you to show up for us because we're also important. And the way we're asking you to show up is through your health. Like I personally don't care if I had to downsize my home and I had to move into a humble rancher in Briargate, right there by the mall. If that meant and that guaranteed that my husband would show up more presently for me and that he would be guaranteed to have longevity through his life, and I would swap it out every single day of the week. There would be some humbling there on his end because I think that, again, everything comes at a cost. And if you're just hyper focused on your body, well, then yes, of course the bills aren't going to get paid. But if we live by principles in our family, and do we abide by them, and are we perfect? No, I'll be the first to admit that. Family, fitness, finance, and faith. And we do our best to balance those 4. And while we're really good in some, we elicit the professionalism of others to help bring that balance. But in my perfect world, I do want my husband to work out. I do want him to look and feel good. I do want him to be present with my children. I do want him to be my teammate with telling the kids no soda. And I do want him to make money. And I do want him to be faithful, in his faith. Yes, I do want it all. And do I think I can have it all? Yes. And do I think you deserve it all? And do I think you deserve it all? Yes. Because we give our husbands our all every single day. And some days it's not always perfect. But one thing for sure is that we always show up. And we expect them to do the same for us. And that's a hard truth that I'm okay with saying because, that's a cop-out. Like whenever I hear my husband say, oh, well, I've been working all day. Somebody needs to pay the bills here. Well, sweet pea, I could also pay the bills. However, you understand my worth in this home. And we've made a choice together for me to be the glue in this family. And being the glue in this family also means I need to snap you back to reality when you're making excuses about your health. And so when you're saying you don't have time for this, I'm gonna call a flag. I'm gonna throw out a flag, because if I have time for it, and as a busy executive you are, you can find time for it. You know. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you said something that made me think, like when you talk about that sacrifice, like I was thinking about going from, you know, if you had to go from your guys' very nice home right now and in downsize and all of that, like I'm thinking from a man's perspective, how many things that we tie into and we've told ourselves, and a lot of this actually goes into a shift in identity. And I think that's the bigger struggle. And any identity shift is painful, because it's less painful to, you know, take on another job, or it's actually less painful. Usually a guy's like, okay, if I need this, I don't have this, I can add work. It's easier to go into the proactive, but it's harder to change the message of the symbolism of what some of that means. And same thing on the flip side, there can be a guy that's 100% into his health, but again, and that's something we didn't talk about. Josh started because a lot of his earlier years when he was fit, that was a big part. And he said, I don't want this to be a negative part of my identity. And so he had to rip away from that, which then led to another problem, you know, and that was a journey.
It's a shift.
But the big shift was really not so much about the sets and reps in the weight room. It was more about an identity shift. So how does fitness fit for yourselves personally in your own fitness, as well as then, you know, does it shift identity when your husbands, let's say, are not a part of that same journey, or they're not? Again, we talked about the message it sends, but does it shift an identity to the point where now it's like, and because I see this a lot, it's the women that are like, well, okay, I don't have this, and they don't want to be mean about it, or they feel like, well, my husband worked, and again, it's a lot of excuses, like you said, and so it's a reallocation of focus to, well, I'll pour my energy into the kids, because that is just like a man can say, he can have the excuse and say, I'll pour my energy into work, right? Which again, it's a cop-out, but it also becomes part of an identity thing that then we hold on to that, and then that's what gets hard to break. So can you speak to that?
I'd say, so from our relationship, it's a cycle. We go through cycles, and sometimes it's really bad and sometimes it's really good. But it's the bad times where about 2 years ago, we almost separated, and I was really working out hard, and I feel like he also saw that too, and I would say like, hey, for your health, I feel like this would be good. He did his mountains and stuff like that, but to get that really hard workout, for me, it's a therapy to work out. At once I was going to therapy, and I stopped and put everything I had into working out, and I felt like if I'm doing this and it is helping me so much in my everything, like, you know, that I knew it would help him anyways. And so yes, he did start working out more, and he's gained such a confidence more in himself for sure, because I mean, we've always been fit, but not like, actually, let's see the muscles. You know what I mean? And for a guy, I think it is a big deal to be able to be like, oh yeah, wow, look, and I can do this.
So can I ask you one?
Yeah,
it is.
So, all right, so can we pause? Because again, I know there's so much that goes into connection, and ultimately, like, I'm gonna get to the nitty gritty here. Yeah. So when we talk about sex life, okay, and again, I can say for men who are mature, they start to understand that sex is better with connection. But some men never get there. Some men, it takes them a long time to get there. Women, I assume it's almost always been about connection first, and it's night and day different, which is why you can still be active and do everything you're talking about. However, in what you just said, there's this thing where it's like, our relationship was X, so you already have X amount of connection, and then you went from, you know, it's not like you guys were unhealthy, but then you added a whole new layer. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how does just that one variable alone, how does that affect you guys?
Yeah, totally. So I feel like, I mean, we've been sexual our whole marriage, but yeah, I feel like as soon as we connect in levels like fitness, for like, it brings us together because we see, and it's helped our sex life because we both go to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we are at the gym every day. And so we probably prioritize by times because we do have sex because we enjoy it now. And it's helped us just because we're more to it in ways, but it's also just helped us get closer, for sure.
And again, I can speak from the men's perspective. I've actually never asked the women from a women's perspective, is the physical pleasure from sex more enjoyable the more fit your husband is?
100%.
What about you?
Okay.
I think that if I don't feel like I look good, then I don't want to have sex.
Right.
Right? I mean, whereas I'm sure he doesn't mind how I look at all. To him, I'm, perfect, right? I've always looked just fabulous, so he doesn't really care. But that intimacy for me, really, I don't want there unless I feel good. So if I feel attractive, if I just, those endorphins get going, right? You've had a good workout, you just feel good, and you want to feel good with your spouse.
I'll say I feel the same way when my husband looks good, when he looks good, and even sometimes like catching another woman take a look at him because he's worked out really hard, or I see like a woman, when he gets into the gym and a woman will go, "Oh, Josh, have you been working out?" It kind of like brings my shoulders up a little bit. Yeah, I'm like, oh, she's noticing too. Like, I'm glad I'm not the only one to notice, because I mean, it's like, you said, like, we're gonna love each other no matter what. My husband and I have loved each other through me being almost 200 pounds to him being, I hit 200 pounds, to him being 380, us to being where we're at now. I'm not even where I was at a point. And so it's not so much like the body has to be perfect, but like you said, I like to feel good. And I know when he feels good about himself, he has the stamina, the resilience to put in that extra mile in bed, or to put in that extra mile, just in general. It breeds a stronger physical connection, I think.
And there is again, correct me if I'm wrong. I like to study this kind of stuff. I mentioned it goes into the psychology, but for women, there's a general principle that I believe is true, which is there's something inherently attractive about scarcity. Again, the reason why diamonds are popular is because they make them as scarce. If diamonds were on every corner, like a zirconium, you wouldn't value it as much. Even though it can look the same, it serves no real great purpose. It sits on your finger or whatever. But if you know that it's valuable and it's scarce, the perception makes it more. If your husband is like every other guy, if he's lazy, if he's fat, if he's whatever, and it's like, I can get that guy a dime a dozen. But if your husband is set apart in multiple ways, he can provide this way, he can look this way, he can love on me this way, right? There's a scarcity. And isn't that more attractive?
Right, yeah. And I will say, I feel like, I don't know if I'm not in my husband's head, but I feel like when he saw me getting fitter and like, oh, my wife's actually getting hot, like I felt like he put a lot more effort into making sure I was, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it's like, okay, like.
I can always tell when my husband, like, again, and I love what you said. My husband's gonna love me no matter what I look like.
Yeah.
But the truth is, we're visual people, and if women are visual, could you imagine what how visual men actually are?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, because they say men are more like visual than we are, and I know I'm visual. And
But men need to hear women. Okay, just to set the record straight, women are visual too.
yeah,
Me, 100%.
Thank you. Like
visual,
women-
committed, and respectful. But like we're visual.
I would love to rub the muscles on the arm, like, yeah. That's nice.
I'll never tell my husband, like, if he's like, I'll never say, like, if he's gaining weight, but I will share when he's losing weight or like gaining muscle, I will make sure to like point out, like, I've noticed it. I will say, like, are you hitting the gym? Like, what are you doing? He's like, yeah, I did a couple sets today. I'm like, great. Like, I'll encourage that and positively reinforce that. But like, also at the same time, like, I love seeing my husband look athletic, because again, it ties into who he is on the mental side of things. Like, our husbands didn't get to where they're at by being lazy. They had to have some form of discipline, some form of intellect. And I just pray at times that also bleeds into their physical, because they are, like, I'll speak for my husband. He is he is 1 in a million. And going back to the scarcity thing, like there is nobody like Josh Osborne. And I say that, because I've seen him persevere through so many different things. Being able to see him do that in the gym would be incredible. Like the way we show, like, and I'm not there. I don't think I'm where you guys are in the gym, where you guys are like, my journey's still relatively new, but it's been consistent, and it haven't gone backwards. I've continued to move forward every day, and that's all I'm asking from him, is to every single day just to.
How much more, if you had to even start to think about how much more is still inside of you to give? How much, if you saw your husband's really taking charge in these ways, or maybe you've already seen some of it, like if you think back to before he started his like real kick in his journey, how much more, I'm curious, I want men to hear, how much is already inherently inside you, capacity-wise and desire-wise, that you would let out, you would unleash if there was that, if that environment was there and that husband was really taking charge in that way. Like men, I think this should be motivational for guys to really hear some of the locker room talk of what women really would desire, because I would say like this, not that I'm a proponent of this kind of stuff, but like, it was a big to-do when the movie, right, 50 Shades of Grey came out and all that, and whether people are like, but it was because it allowed women to kind of go, there's this stuff inside of us that never gets talked about except for the women's locker room. Mm-hmm. And women's erotica books, again, it's not the time to go into judgment or right or wrong and different, but they, from a just number standpoint,
They sell.
bestsellers,
Yeah.
they sell. And I have never, just walking by a book section, I have never once seen a cover of an erotica book with a fat guy on it.
Who's going to read about that?
Exactly. So, if we all kind of judge a book by its cover, so I'm like, all right, men, you need to hear. So, like, if we could get a little glimpse of the locker room talk, if you women have that, how much more is inside you that you're just like, I want to give this. I want this to come out. And then women talk about it.
I met a lady one time when I owned a hair salon after the Air Force, and I had met a lady, and she was just wildly happy. She was maybe late 60s, and I asked, when your hairdressers know some things, right? Well, without saying her name, because I am HIPAA compliant, I asked her, what was the key to her marriage? And she goes, my husband is 75, and he works out every single day. And I was just like blown away that and he's 75 and he worked out every single day. And she goes, and his sexual appetite is just always there. She goes, so I've had one rule in my marriage. She goes, we've been together for decades, and it was that I never told him no in sex. She goes, well, now then after he started working out, I never wanted to tell him no. And there was the difference that she said, I never told him no before, but she was seeing him gain those muscles and gain those tones. She said, I never wanted to tell him no. And I thought that was really cute. There's a difference, right, between doing it out of obligation and then doing it because when his shirt's off, it's just, you want to go wild. And like, I know for me, like one of the things that that motivates me to continue to work out and to continue to never give up on my physical appearance is that like, I have this like, all of us have this like picture in our heads of like what we view, right? And I've always like thought, because I've always been a thicker woman. Like I've always just been very curvy, but I've also lost the weight but I've always wanted him to be able to pick me up, like that was like always something in my head, like, when women I want, yes, like to be tiny enough to where he could like pick me up. Part of that's my responsibility. And then the other part of it's,
Yeah.
like I could be 130 pounds, but if you can't pick me up, you can't pick me up. Yeah. So I think we all have these, and admittedly, we all have these ideas of our spouses. We're going to love them through thick and thin. And like I've gone through this year in our life, and we've had some major shifts in our marriage. I know you said your boys are older. We just had a baby in 2022, and that takes a whole nother shift for us. Like we're tired.
Yeah.
We're freaking tired.
Totally.
We're tired. The baby's ready for bed. It's like, and so that's where, to me though, that's when it's even more important. Like I've looked, so after I had my daughter, so before I was always able to get by. One of you guys said skinny fat. I don't know.
I said at the beginning when we were talking the health stuff
Yeah.
about the typical female weight loss programs of starving yourselves and doing tons of cardio where you end up just getting skinny fat.
And so I've been at that space too. I was never like uber skinny, but like I've also been there where I've been on the unhealthy side of things, and I seen how that impacted my relationship, my mood, how I responded to my spouse when I could have chose love, rather I chose to be snappy, and that was because of my health. And so women also have that same responsibility. But when you're doing the things that you need to do, it makes it even more apparent that for me, I expect him to do those things, and when those things aren't being done, it just is kind of like, okay. And to your point, yeah, you're a 10 out of 10 in all these areas, but what if you actually did the things that I'm doing over here to make things better? What would our relationship look like? It could be so much better. And and I say this with a humble heart, like I didn't get to where I am by not wanting it all. And I think that was something I was battling whether to talk to you ladies about today. Was like, I think it's important to say that, like, yes, if it's within reach, why not go and reach it? And so that's my thing, is like
Well, even seeing the desire to get there, right?
Yeah.
Just, it's not like I'm expecting to see Adonis in 3 months.
Well,
Yeah.
a forest fire doesn't start. A forest fire doesn't start. Yeah. I would say a forest fire doesn't start without a spark. So the desire is that spark, and we have to come back to desire. But I want men to hear women's desires too. And I feel like I have to believe that so many women, when they're just tired and weary and talking to other women, are just talking about, I just put that out of my mind. It's just, you almost have to kill desire to be able to go to a level of, okay, this is comfortable. But comfort is the killer of, again, positive change. And it does take two, just like in business. What is something that you would want your son to learn?
In Chris's gym here, there's a saying that stuck with me. Oh, and it's so good. And it's the basis of it is no man has the right to not do the best, right? And I don't know if you have it memorized. Do you?
Yeah, the Socrates is like
Socrates.
Yeah,
sorry.
no man has a right to go through this life without seeing of what the human is capable of.
And I think for me, whether it be my son, or I look at it from a species standpoint, not just male or female, I have no right to deprive my family of the best version of myself, and neither does my spouse or my son. When my boys go to make families of their own, they need to show up the best versions of themselves. And Socrates says, starts with, it's your body. You can't deprive yourself of that. And I think that would be the advice I'd give my boys.
Yeah, that's good. I'm like trying to think. I would be, like put forth the effort that you want to see and watch yourself grow. Watch yourself be that person you want to be. Because once I don't know, I feel like for some people, I think it is hard to, once they start working out, they don't see the results right away, but you have to just go after it, and your woman will appreciate that you put that effort into yourself. Because for me, I'm way more attracted to those muscles that I'm seeing, because I know that he's putting the effort in, because he knows that that's something I want. He knows he can have the dad bod, but I want more, and I know he could do more. So for me, he does it, and I'm appreciative of it.
Well, I think biologically too, we're attracted to the physique of the male that looks just like he can
Pick you up and throw you.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's definitely the point of like, okay, if women are about rearing children and you want good genetics, you don't want to pass on the genetics of a fat slob.
Right.
And so again, it goes back to scarcity, and it goes back to the alpha, it goes back to all these things. And that's why, and the hard part is because guys always think like, okay, why do women always go for the jerk? Well, they don't want the jerk, but they want someone who is confident and settling. There's this balance act that, again, guys, it's like they just never quite get this. And then they become needy and clingy and all this because they're not actually being a true version of themselves. And so it's that both of like, I'm being the best version of myself and I have a heart to give it to you. And so but I can't give you something if you're hungry, but I have no food, I have all the well wishes in the world, but I have nothing to give you. But if I have all this food, I can be like, hey, have some food, right? So if I have something to give you, to offer you, now I can, And it's coming from the best version of myself because I worked hard to get there. Not just, again, that's the thing. You might get lucky in other areas of life. You know, by the time you get past 40, there's no luck when it comes to health. Yeah.
Well, and I think men too, once they get into their, 50s, they do think, okay, well, I just don't want to work hard for that young body anymore. I've put my time in, now.
What do you say to that?
Yeah, what's the message? Well, okay, what is the message that sends to you if you're even perceiving that?
Well, I guess because I'm a selfless person that I just get it, okay, I totally understand. I'm going to keep working on myself. If I see myself getting 5 or 10 pounds over what I want to, I can reel it in quick. I will do online coaching. I will hire somebody. And my husband's like, spend whatever money you want. I want you to be happy. It'd be nice if he did it with me, right? Because if I'm wanting to look a certain way for you, I kind of want you to reciprocate that for me.
What I heard you say is you got it, but I'm genuinely curious. You said, I get it, but do you respect it? Or do you align with it? Is a better word?
I guess I do, because I understand where he's coming from. I mean, he served in the Air Force for 26 years. He's served in multiple tours. I mean, he is, a hot shot. So I kind of maybe give some leeway, in that. But at the same time, it would be nice if he was a little bit more fit.
What would you think would improve in your relationship if your man went on a fitness binge and got super hot?
I would feel like I got the whole package.
Right.
Right? And do I deserve the whole package?
Heck yeah.
I mean,
you do.
I do? Okay.
You do.
But I mean, if men are attracted to women and they want them to look a certain way, then why you need to look a certain way?
No.
Why? Just because you're a millionaire means that you can be chubby and eat a whole bag of chips watching the game on Sunday?
No, it's a double standard. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Is it comes back, there is a message there, and we have to separate the fact that, again, it's not whether it's conditioned or just genuine. I think it's always a little bit of both when you're like, but I love and accept as it is. And that's beautiful. And it should be that way. And.
I think because you're a millionaire, and I think because you're a millionaire, you need to be hot and fit. And I think there's even a greater responsibility to that because, again, because you're a millionaire and because you've achieved these great things professionally, that's even more reason why you need to be fit. Because it's not just when you're making that type of money, because really what money is it's an energy, right? And so that means that you have more responsibility, you have more impact, and every day you need to be doing more and being more and to show it better. And because you've shown your capability in these ways, I now see that you have more in the tank to give. And maybe there might be times you don't want to, and that's fine. However, on a graph, right? Like I as a wife want to see you constantly doing this because Chris said it best. You're either going forward or backwards. There's no in between. You can't just stay like this it's slightly here and I think because you have those capabilities, you are called on to do more in that realm because you're capable. And I think for me, one of my only goals in life is to be thoroughly used when I go. When the good Lord takes me up, I want to be thoroughly used up. I don't want nothing left here. I don't want anyone to say that I had more to give, that I could have done more, that I could have been more, that I could have been more loving, that I could have been more disciplined. I want to put it all out there, and I think it's not selfish to say that I hope my husband would do the same. And the first word that I wanted to say was expect, because expectations it's a funny word, but expectations come with standards and standards come with discipline. And I think all those things tie in.
Yeah.
Well, and men too do think, okay, you marry your hot wife, and then if she puts on 30, 40 pounds, the man then, can go and have an affair. Well, I didn't sign up for that. Well, look at you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not right. You didn't keep up. So there is that double standard. It's like, well, since I'm providing for you, I expect for you to look a certain way. Okay, well then if I'm going to look a certain way, then I want you to look a certain way.
Fair.
So, and it goes back to just also being healthy and setting that example for your kids. You can say something, you can tell them to eat better, right? Your kids, you want to fuel your body and feel good, but then at the same time, you can't be having
Chips and soda every single, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think the balance, of course, is, and this is what's good, like, and thank you again for all just being honest and opening up to this. And I think more people need to have this kind of healthy discussion and more healthy conversations that are open and honest. And this is really for, again, people who are desirous of more. You're not going to get anywhere with someone that just doesn't care, someone that's not desirous. And that's in any area, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, or all of that. And I want men, if you're listening to this again, I want you to understand this is not about shame. This is not about women like, oh, and the hard part is we all feel the tension of like, oh my gosh, if I say expectation, then it almost becomes this, but he does this and it becomes a transactional thing yet again. And we're not saying this is transactional. What we're saying is we just want more. We want the best. We want, like you're saying, and my words of saying this, I want to die with my boots on, right? We want a steward. I've always had this thing since I was a little kid. I don't know where it came from. I just felt this sense of stewardship. And that's the hardest thing and when you go big, you also fail. And when you fail, that hurts. And so when people fail and they get hurt, they tend to back away. But we have to put ourselves out there. And it's like, I would rather fail big than not fail at all and die with nothing, right? So I want everyone together. And so I guess I'll kind of wrap this up like, guys, if you're hearing this and you're excited and you're like, I want to get this, I just don't know how. That is why we have these resources. That's why, again, like Danielle was saying, like they have these, family, fitness, finance, and faith, right? And if I'm not the expert, and it's impossible to be the expert in everything. So what do? You get the help, you get the resources. We have this. So there's always a way. If you want the change and you're hungry enough for it and you want to give your woman this, because here's the beautiful part of this. Why I love this conversation, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Man, if you understand, if you give in this way, your women will give you back tenfold and you'll be excited in all of that. And you'll get to feel, you want to talk about an identity booster for a man, you have a woman that's swooning over you and that you just rocked her world and you did this and you give them what they want, they're, oh my gosh. And I hear everyone being like, amen, brother, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So we have the resources, we can
Sign
do
me.
this. Yeah, and this is what it's about. But at the end of the day, it's just a better way of living. And we can do this together. And it doesn't mean you have to do the exact, just like, you both had your fitness journey, mountains and the weight. Okay, there will be times, but now you've got routine, and it creates a connectedness, it creates a bond. And yeah, there's some other things too. And it's like, be able to be open. And so this is also for women. If you're a woman that's also watching this and going, I want that, I want to get fit, I want to be able to give that, I want to be able to join in this conversation. Again, we have that resource too. We're going to be opening up Chris Knott reprogramming also to women and to couples, so that whether you're a woman wanting to get better, if you're a man wanting to get better, or if you're a couple wanting to do it together, we have that as a resource. But we are here to be that link in the chain so that couples can come together and we can all live the life that we're meant to be and steward everything that God has given us. So, ladies, thank you for joining me. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
And let's do it again.